Hi, I'm Ryan Knowles. This is Caleb DeWiggins. He's a fellow brewer, came to help me out today. Today we're doing an all-grain beer, all-grain brewing. It's a lot different than extract brewing, which we did last time. The main difference is instead of the jug of malt syrup, we are going to be using the barley, the actual grain of the barley. And that has several benefits to using the syrup. The main one is that you will actually get a color of a beer like what you would buy in a store. You can get a much lighter colored beer. Whereas all grain, the beer will typically turn out a little bit darker than what you would expect. The type of beer that we are brewing today is a pre-prohibition lager. It's a lager that people drank before 1919 in the United States, before Prohibition. And what we'd expect, I don't really know what to expect from this beer. This isn't a type of beer that I normally would make, but it uses about 8 pounds of grain, 7.5 pounds of 6-row U.S. Barley, 1/2 pound of carapils, and 1 pound of flaked maize or corn. The corn will definitely make the beer much lighter in flavor and body, and so that's the style we're making. We will be using 2 ounces of hops. We'll be using pellet hops. The pellet hops, we'll be using boiling 1.5 ounces of pellet hops for 1 hour, and then 1/2 ounce of pellet hops for 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes. Okay.
I like to think that this brew is actually a lot what Adolf Budweiser would have had originally before Prohibition, or Coors brothers would have actually been drinking before Prohibition as well. It's going to be a lot hoppier. It's going to be not as light as your Budweisers or your Coorses, and it's definitely going to be a little higher in alcohol content.
Which is always nice.
Yes.
So this would be the type of beer that that people would have drank before the government handed brewing over to gangsters, is the way I look at it. So, but the main difference we're going to talk about between all grain and extract brewing. All grain, you have to extract the sugars from the barley. Okay. Right now there are very, very few sugars in the barley. There are starches. So it will undergo a process that will convert those starches into sugar. So what you have to have in order to do that, you have to have what's called a mash tun. And this is a 7-gallon Rubbermaid water cooler that I've converted into a mash tun. I've taken the spigot out of it, and then I have bought these things that you can put into it. This is the back of a toilet supply line that I just cut and took the plastic tubing out of, and then put on there with the little plastic, what do you call these things?
Fittings, ferrules.
Okay. And you just put that on both sides, then you have a valve, you can open and close it, and then and that's how you'll put the grain actually in here. Then you'll let it sit with water, and we'll talk more about that later. During that time, it will convert the starches into sugars. After you get done with the first thing of that, you'll drain it into our pot, which we'll show later, and then we'll add more water to make sure we get all the rest of the sugars as much as we can out. Typically you use 1.25 quarts of water per pound of grain. So we're using 9 pounds of grain, including the corn, so it's a little under 3 gallons of water is how much water we'll use for the first sparge, for the strike. And then we'll drain all that out. The grains will absorb about half of that water. And then we will add, for the second, for the sparge, after we drain it out, we'll add 2 quarts of water per pound of grain, which is about 4.5 gallons. which is 4.5 gallons. And then that will be the rest of our beer, and almost all of that water will drain out, and that will have all the sugars on it. We should end up with about 6 to 6.5 gallons of unfermented beer, which will boil down to about 5 gallons after everything's done. And then after you get done with that point, then everything is pretty much the same. So the type of yeast we're doing, we are using a lager yeast. The main difference between a lager and an ale is the fermentation temperatures. Ales ferment at a much warmer temperature, typically around room temperature, whereas lagers you want a much cooler temperature. We are doing a lager today. We're using dry yeast. Remember I said in the first one you can use liquid yeast, you can use dry yeast. Some people like one better than the other, but they both make very, very good beer. This is a yeast starter that Caleb made.
Basically all it is a pack of dry yeast that we rehydrated. I think we'll be showing that later. It has barley extract in it, wheat extract to be exact, and then it's sat for 2 days and fermented, creating more and more yeast. If you look at the bottom there, you can see there's a small amount of cake that's left over. That's living yeast and dead yeast that'll be ready to be put in our wort once we've got our boil done.
And the main benefit of a yeast starter is that you have a large amount of very, very healthy yeast ready to go right when you pitch it. When you just sprinkle it on like I did in the first show, a lot of those yeast will die. They won't rehydrate in the beer, and they won't do as well. But it can produce a potentially much better beer with a yeast starter.
And it really doesn't take too long to really put it together. It took me about an hour.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
And this was my first time to make a starter. So it doesn't take any time at all.
Right now we are going to heat our strike water up. For our grains, we're going to heat it up to about 175 degrees. Our point we want to get is 153. So we'll lose some of the heat from the water when we dump it in, when it mixes with the grains and everything. So you try to predict how much you're going to lose. It's always easier to go a little higher. If I end up with 160 degrees, I can always add a little bit of cool water to bring it down, and I don't have to boil more water to bring it up. So I'm going for 175 degrees. We're going to heat that up, and then I'll show you what to do with that. So a great thing about making beer is you can also make wine with pretty much the same setup. You don't need a whole lot of other things. So I branched off to that about 6 months ago, started experimenting. This one I bottled in December 19th. This is a sparkling dry mead. Mead is a honey wine, and this didn't turn out real well. It's very, very dry, kind of bitter, but it's all right. The next one I tried, I bought a wine expert kit from MidwestSupplies.com. This is a Pinot Grigio. I put a picture on here of some capoeira fighters. I came up with the name, or my family came up with the name Roaming Rhino because I've traveled, been to a few places, and so I decided to make the wine labels fit with some places that I've traveled to. So that's why I did the capoeira fighters. This capoeira is a Brazilian style of martial arts that I tried to do for about 4 months when I was in Brazil. The next one I tried is I called it Rhino Red. It's a Cabernet Sauvignon. I bought also from Wine Expert. It's a red wine. It's very kind of rich flavor, very dry. I got kind of the idea to do this one when I was in Argentina, and I toured and kind of traveled around the Mendoza area, the winemaking area of Argentina, and they had made Cabernet Sauvignons as well as the Malbecs. Very, very good. So I decided to try this, and it turned out extremely, extremely good. Next thing, I kind of like to just kind of try, make concoctions, just kind of see what I get. This one I made, I call it Econo Concord. I made out of Welch's grape juice, which is just Concord grape juice. So if you ever had a Concord wine, it's, relatively the same thing. So I made that, and I actually haven't popped a bottle of that yet, so I don't know how it's going to be. I bottled it in April. I figured the longer I let it sit, it'll probably be better. I also made, don't have a label on this one yet. This is a blackberry mead. So I made, honey wine, then I added blackberries to flavor it. The blackberries are from my brother's farm that he grew, and it looks excellent. And it still needs to sit for a few more months, probably 6 months. But when I bottled it, I tried a little. It was still very, very good. So yeah, wine, I think it's actually easier to make than beer. There's not as many steps involved in it, but it just takes a lot longer to let it sit. Beer is ready in 6 weeks. Good wine, 6 months, a year, you probably want to let it sit before you drink it. So now we've heated our strike water up to, it's at 175 degrees. We are going to add our grains. Right now, Caleb's going to go ahead and mix the corn in with the other grains. I like to add my grains before my water. I'll add a little bit of grains first, then add my water. I got a pitcher that I'm going to use that for. And it just kind of helps to, you want to make sure that all of your grains are wet and they're saturated, because the barley has a tendency to kind of get caked on the bottom, and and the water doesn't get to it, then it doesn't get the sugars out of it. And you want the sugars. It's very important. That's good. So I take a little bit, probably about half the bag, dump it in. Now I'll take the pitcher and just a little water on it. And then Caleb, you can go and stir as I'm doing that. The type of all grain we're doing today is called batch sparging. The main difference, there's there's more, but there's two major ways of doing it. There's fly sparging and batch sparging. Batch, we add the water, we stir it in, make sure it's all saturated, then we let it settle and drain out. Fly sparging, you'd have a little thing on top. When you add the next step, the sparge, that goes around and just puts a little bit of water at the time, which is how the big boys like Budweiser and Coors all do it. No, it's something different. And but this is a little bit easier way, and it still makes beer that's just as good.
That smells good.
Smells good. It's like beer tea.
Mm-hmm.
But better. Damn, just got a little bit left now. Okay, make sure you got it all stirred in. Okay, now we'll do a temperature reading. Remember, we're shooting for basically between 148 to 160 is the range. If you get above 170, the husk from the grains will release some bad flavors, which you don't want. And on a lighter beer like this, a lager, it might be a little better to be at the lower end of that. But right now we're at 162, so I'm going to add a little bit of cool water. All right, this is the point where you can get in trouble very easily, because you remember that the actual mash tun will absorb some heat, so you don't want to cool it down too much, because it'll even cool down a little bit more as it sits. But I'll just add a little bit. Big part of this is just understanding your system. And then I'll stir it up. It doesn't take much to cool it down. Perfect, 152 degrees. That's as close as you want to get. We'll just drop the top on there. We'll let that sit for 1 hour. During this time, the starches in the grains are converting into sugar, and then we'll drain it out into our boiling pot. Then we'll add our sparge water, let that sit for about 15 minutes, and then we'll drain that out, and then we'll be ready to boil.
About 2 years ago, started brewing, and it was kind of fun to start with. My first red ale turned out quite poor, but Ryan drank it. I think he enjoyed it. I don't even think I have any of that left, but about 10 batches in so far. I like to stick with more of the extract brews because I haven't taken that step yet towards all grain. But I enjoyed it. It's a good hobby to have. It's good to enjoy your own beer.
All right, so this is my hop garden, little patch I made. This is a vine, a hop vine that's growing up this right now. This is glacier hops. You can see it's growing pretty well. It's the first year for them, so they'll grow a lot more next year. I built this little trellis thing. I actually planted 4 different varieties, but only 2 of them came up for whatever reason. The other one that came up is Williamette hops, and it's just barely coming up, just a little guy, but he's still doing all right. But I'm hoping when these get done, I'm going to do a blend with them and make some APAs, maybe a stout with the glacier. Should be pretty good. Next year I'm going to plant the other 2 and let them get going. I built the trellis 10 foot high, which is probably the shorter end by most expert standards, but didn't want to go too high because there's power lines up there. So now we are going to heat our sparge water, and we're going to be using 4.5 gallons of sparge water. Remember, 2 quarts of water or half a gallon per pound of grain. So we're using 4.5 gallons because we have 9 pounds. So just dump it in here. We'll let that heat up till it gets to about 175 degrees. We're also at a point now where we can empty our wort here out of this. It's very important, since you're using hot water, to get some tubing to drain through that's not your typical plastic tubing, because it will melt that, and maybe not melt it completely, but it will leach some harsh plastic stuff that you don't want. Okay, we'll open it up. We'll take a temperature reading, see where we're at. You're at 153 degrees. We didn't even lose a temperature, so excellent. That's exactly what you want. Couldn't do it better if I planned on it. Yeah. Hold on. Okay, the first thing we have to do, we have to recirculate, and when you run a little bit of the wort through, you're letting the grain bed kind of set, and the grain bed will actually act as a filter. It'll filter out some proteins that you don't really want. So we'll hook this on, and we'll fill. I usually just fill about a pitcher up. It's usually all it takes to recirculate. You should notice it'll start running a little clearer. It'll be very cloudy when it comes out. Some people don't even do this. You want to open it up just a little bit so that it doesn't clog your. Then just gradually open it up a little more. Then you'll fill that up, and we'll dump it back in here. And it's also important to make sure you don't splash the wort around at this point, because it can cause oxidation because the wort is hot. You just want to try to let it drain as softly and gently as you can. Then we'll just pour this right back on top, let it recirculate. It's important not to just dump it in, because it will upset your grain bed. You just want to kind of splatter it around. Try to let it go kind of gentle. Here, you want to open that up for me again? This is going to be an extremely light beer, I think, light in color.
Straight down in.
Yep, straight down in, that's fine. Perfect.
What you all can't see back at home right now is the fact that The grains have colored the wort quite a bit. The smell is very strong. You can smell the barley, you can smell the corn. It's actually really good, very good smell.
You can see if I can scoop it out.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll be able to. It's, you know, very light, like a color of beer, like what you'd expect. Yeah, I also, you know, whenever I say a light beer, I don't want you to get confused and think I'm talking about like Bud Light. This will be much higher alcohol than Bud Light. It will have, should have much more flavor than Bud Light. And I would expect it to be a beer that I would enjoy much more than drinking Bud Light or any Coors or Miller or any of those types of beers. It'll have more calories as well. You know, Bud Light will make you skinny, so I stay away from it. We've heated our sparge water up to 175 degrees. I heated up 4.5 gallons. So we're going to go ahead and add that to here. And you don't have to worry about splashing around. You want to splash it around. When I get a little more in there, Caleb, you can stir it up. And this is just cleaning the grains. Make sure you're getting all the sugar that's been converted. All the sugar that's been converted, you want out of the grains and into your brew pot, because the sugar will be converted into alcohol, which is important.
It also gives you all the flavors that you typically have in the beers. You know,
Yep.
It gives you your sweetness. It gives you the sometimes the aftertaste. How many gallons did we do there?
4.5 gallons.
4.5.
3 the first time and 4.5 this time. Okay, now then we'll just put the lid back on that. Let that sit for about 10 minutes, just letting the grain bed settle. Remember, it's not going to convert much at this point, maybe a little bit, and then we'll just run it through again, and then we'll be filled up and we'll be ready for the boil. All right, so another good thing to do while you're brewing beer is maybe to read up on some of the ideas and methods and things. The best book that I've kind of looked at is John Palmer's book. It's called How to Brew. It's very good. Most of the stuff I do is based on some of the ideas from this. I think Caleb said he reads it as well.
Homebrew, or How to Brew by John Palmer, is excellent. It has a lot of very close step-by-step instructions. It doesn't go. It sometimes goes into a lot of detail, but it allows you to skip those details and just use the step-by-step without having to know, well, why do we use the yeast like we do, and why do we add what we do to it.
When you're just getting started, you're more worried about how things work instead of why things work. So this book does a really good job of kind of breaking that down. So it doesn't give you too much information, it just gives you what you want. The other book that I've looked at, I've had this book actually before I started brewing. I bought this long before I started brewing when I was about 19. It's called The Brewmaster's Bible. It's not quite as easy to follow, I don't think. It still has some good stuff, some good recipe ideas and stuff in here. If you want to grow your own hops or your own barley or herbs to brew with or something like that, this is pretty good, The Home Brewer's Garden. It has tells all about how to build a trellis like what I built and some other different ways to build it. Also, very important if you want to grow your own barley, it shows how to malt the barley. Gives some really easy ideas for how to do that and things like that. Okay, so this has been sitting about 10 minutes. We're going to have to recirculate it again like we did earlier. Again, just make sure you don't get all that stuff you don't really want. Just look how much clearer it is now, lighter it is.
Quite a bit.
It's still got some sugar in it though.
That's good.
Yep. It's going a lot faster than it did last time. Remember, it went real slow that first time. Crap. I'm messing up, man. What a waste. Now I'm just pouring the water over the spoon, just recirculating it. Try not to disturb the grain bed as much as I can. Just let it drain out, and then I've made this stick here. I pre-measured the 5, 6, 7 gallons. We should have hopefully between 6 and 6.5 gallons. Then after we boil it, it'll drop down to about 5 gallons, and it should be pretty good. Okay, now we have let our sparge water drain out. We got right about 6.5 gallons, which is what we wanted. So we're going to put that on. We're going to put it on the cooker, wait till it gets boiling, and then we're going to add the hops.
6 gallons. It's going to blow us both to Mars here.
Probably. The first time I burned myself.
No.
All right. So we got our wort boiling. I let it boil a little bit longer, just let some of the water boil off of it. But the recipe said add 1.5 ounces of cluster hops. These are pellet hops. Let those boil for 60 minutes. Then we'll add the other 1/2 ounce with about 10 minutes left. So I'll go ahead and pour in 1 whole ounce, and Caleb will pour in a half.
Here.
Ooh, I was going to use a hot bag. Oh well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, doesn't make any difference.
Another thing you want to notice, though, whenever you're boiling and you're adding your hops, sometimes you get boil over. Sometimes, not always, but
I think you don't get boil over, I think, as bad with the propane cooker as you do on your stove, but it is sticky to do on your stove, so make sure you clean it up right away. So we'll let that boil for an hour, and then in a little bit we'll add our other hops. All right, so now we're going to show you a couple beers that I've made. This one is a honey Kolsch. Kolsch is a style of beer that comes from Cologne, Germany. Technically, any type of beer that's called a Kolsch should be brewed in Cologne, but you can make at home the same style fitting with those. This is a honey Kolsch. I added honey to it, just kind of lighten the body up and give it a little bit more flavor. I brewed this for 4th of July when my family came. I filled up my 3-gallon keg, and here you go. I filled up my 3-gallon keg, and I thought, yeah, that'll kind of last for a while. And my family drank through it in about a half an hour, so it went over pretty well.
nice in color.
As you can see, it's extremely light in color, but it has a good flavor to it, I think. You can taste the honey. It's subtle, very subtle, but it's definitely there.
It's good. Excellent.
Still has a little dry kick to it from the hops, but... Okay, so this is the beer that we made on the last show. This is, it's an ESB, which stands for Extra Special Bitter. Typically, an ESB, it has a pretty strong hops flavor to it. An English style ESB is very low carbonation. Again, the American version of this, Red Hook ESB, is very good. It's one of my favorite commercial beers to drink. We'll crack it open. It should be a darker color, but not kind of a dark copper color to it. And this was an extract beer, so remember, it will be a slightly darker than it would be if I did all grain. But I wouldn't expect this to be too dark. Or too light anyway. The style is not light beer.
You can smell the aromine hops. I mean, what did you add there in the last?
It had 3.5 ounces of hops total. I think I had Williamette and Goldings.
It's good.
And I actually cut down the hops quite a bit from what the recipe called for. Not quite a bit, a little bit, but
What was it, about 5 ounces, or was
it was 4.5. Oh, I'm sorry, you said no. Here, I got a whole other bottle.
It's all right. It's really very good.
But yeah, it has a nice little kick to it, but it's not too much.
It's much more bitter than you'd think it would be, but
Not too much. I don't think it's overly so.
no, not so much. Very good.
Yep. All right, so now we are going to add, this is called a Warflook tablet, and it's Irish, made from Irish moss, which is a clarifier. Will help to cause what's called a hot break in your beer. You just drop one tablet in, and it'll help to clear your beer. Then we also, this is a copper wort chiller. After we're done with the boil, it will we'll run water through it, and it'll cool it down. We'll go ahead and put that in just to let it sanitize. Okay, we have close to 10 minutes left in our boil, so we'll go ahead and add our last ½ ounce of hops, of our pellet hops. We'll just drop it in there.
Those pelletized hops at this point in time are added for aroma, not really for flavor, but more for aroma.
Yeah, because when you add it at the very beginning of the boil, I explained this a little bit in my first show. At the beginning of the boil, the aroma will boil off, but it will add bitterness to your beer. At the end of the boil, when you add it, it'll just be adding aroma and not very much bitterness to it. So we'll just leave that, let that sit there for about 10 minutes, and bring back to a boil, and then we'll run our hose through it. Stir it up a little here. You can see there's a lot more hot break in it.
Yeah.
That freaked me out the first time.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, I was like, what is that? Because all grain has some, but not usually that much. Looks good. So now we're all done with the boil. We let the first round of hops set for an hour. The second round has been sitting for 10 minutes. We've added our Warflook tablet. We got our wort chiller in there. It should be boiled down to close to what we want our volume to be. So I'm going to turn off the propane. And Caleb, would you mind turning the hose on? Just turn it on real low to make sure it doesn't shoot out. That's good.
Any hair?
That's good. Okay, we'll let this sit for, it takes probably about 20 minutes to let it cool off. Then we'll add it to our fermenter and drop the yeast, and we'll be good to go. Okay, now we are going to, we've cooled the wort down to below 100 degrees. It was at 93 degrees when I checked it. We're going to show you how to use the auto siphon. First, this thing is, it's a cool little gadget to kind of show how to do it. It's very good for bottling too, but it's very easy to sanitize. You just drop it in your bucket full of sanitizer and just pump it. And it'll just pump the sanitizer right through it. Okay, and then you just pump it and it'll pump all of it out. Okay, now I will hook on this little thing. This is it's a siphon sprayer. It helps to aerate the wort that we're going to add on. It's very important to aerate your wort because after it boils, most of the oxygen has left the wort, and the yeast need that. So I'll hook this on. There we go. Okay, and then here, let me drop it back in here. Okay, and then I'll drop this in. Just want to set that on the ground there. And then we'll just turn this on. Okay, it'll start going. We're going to pump a little bit of hops through it, but that won't make any difference.
That is a handy time saver, this siphon starter.
It is. And this is just helping to aerate your wort. That is going to be a light colored beer. Yeah, just take that. You know, that's what
it's supposed to do.
Yeah, you got to get it pretty high.
More pressure on it, I guess.
Yep. And you can aerate it just by dumping it. You can pick the whole thing up, but 5.5 gallons or so, it's a little heavy. It's easier just to dump it in. And again, it's not a big deal if you get some of that hops in there.
Most of that's going to settle to the bottom along with your yeast cake.
It'll all settle out in the end. Flavor saver. All right. And then we will, I'm going to get a sample of it. Take a hydro. This is a thief we're going to use to take a hydrometer reading. First we'll sanitize that. See what our gravity is. This will help us to determine the amount of alcohol that's in it. Also we can see the color, what color we ended up with. There's a lot of hops and stuff floating around in there. But you just drop your hydrometer in there. And that's pretty good. We are at 1.04, which is exactly where we should be, right in that range where we want to be. I wouldn't recommend, some people do it, I wouldn't recommend adding your sample back in there because it can cause contamination, and it's only that little bit.
I like to say that we give this part to the beer gods.
That's right, for my homies. You want to explain the hydrating yeast? Or?
You can.
Go ahead.
All right. With most dry yeasts, what we're trying to do is basically make those yeasts come back to life. They dry them either through a process of cooking them down very slowly, like you would in an oven, or they will just dehydrate them and then allow them to dry in a cake form. This particular kind, I don't know how it is, but we're using a Safe Lager S23, which is just a general lager yeast. I've used it before. It's excellent yeast, very vibrant. We'll be using the dry pack plus our yeast starter, just so we can kind of show both of them. The yeast starter was started from the same thing. Only difference being we actually made we made a mini beer for this one. And it's been sitting for about 3 days, building up that yeast cake that's in the bottom right now. Now to start with that, you want your water. You start with what they say about a pint, but I use less because it really doesn't matter in the end. You start with about, I just use this little glass jar because it works well and it's easy to carry around. You want to have your water anywhere between 95 and 110 degrees. No hotter than that because it'll hurt the yeast. I don't know if it'll kill them or it'll just hurt them. You just use regular tap water. You open up the top of your yeast. And within the yeast packet there's also yeast nutrient and stabilizers that help the yeast stay alive as well. So, and what you do is you sprinkle it over the top without mixing the yeast in. In the first video, I believe you all just sprinkle it right over the fermenter top, right?
The reason why you want to rehydrate it or make a yeast starter is there's too much, there's a high concentration of sugar in your beer, and the yeast will not be able to rehydrate very well with that high concentrated water or with high concentrated sugar. So you'll want to do this first. It's much better. You'll have, potentially have much better beer if you do it this way.
Now with the dry yeast, you let it sit for 15 minutes on top. Do not stir, do not shake. Just put your top back on so none critters or anything gets in there with it. Usually you don't have a problem with that, but I just put it back on and pat it down a little bit. After 15 minutes, you can stir. You can see there's yeast already settling to the bottom. As they hydrate, they'll become heavy and come out of suspension. The water is clouding as we speak. It's kind of cool to watch. And in about 15 minutes, we'll mix this up. And then we'll be ready to add it to our wort.
Right, a cool thing I think too about brewing your own beer at home, they have all kinds of home brew contests that you can enter just to kind of see what you think. They always have professional judges that will give you some of their ideas about the beer, ways you can improve it, their own thoughts. One of the biggest brewing contests, homebrew contests in the United States is hosted by Samuel Adams Beer. It's called the Long Shot Brewing Contest, and it's kind of cool. If you win their contest, at a Patriots game, they will serve your beer at a Patriots game and sell it there. Also, the top 3 beers from their contest, they will make a 6-pack and sell, called like Long Shot 6-pack, and they'll each have 2 of the top 2 beers from the top 3 winners. This is one of those that won their contest from this year. This hasn't been out very long. This is a double IPA, and IPA stands for India Pale Ale, and that name comes from in a long time ago. It's an English style of beer, and when India was a colony, they used to brew the beer in England and then send it to India. So they had to make a very strong beer with lots of hops, because hops are a natural preservative, to be able to last that voyage without spoiling. So an IPA traditionally will be one of your strongest beers, have an extremely strong hops flavor, and but the Americans, craft brewers, have adapted that and made what's called a double IPA, and so it's like even that much more stronger with even that much more hops flavor to it. So this I would expect to be very, very bitter and very strong. What's that?
Good amber color.
That's looking.
Traditional of an IPA. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Really smell the hops in it too.
Oh yeah, definitely. But
Cheers.
cheers.
It's an IPA.
That's an IPA. It's actually not as strong a hops as I'd expect. I mean, it's definitely strong in hops, but it's not overly so. You know, if you're a Michelob Ultra drinker, you want to stay away from this type of beer, because you probably won't like it. But
They also use somewhat mellow hops. I mean, they use a lot of hops, but it's
not real sharp
like
flavor.
Cascades or
Yeah.
those Cascades are really bite you.
Mm-hmm. It's good. I kind of like it. But yeah, it's probably, I don't know how strong the alcohol is. See if it says it on here.
Probably 8.
That's what I was thinking. 9%. So yeah, I mean, this is about 3 Bud Lights in this bottle as far as alcohol is concerned. So maybe 4 Michelob Ultras. Mike's Double IPA showcases his appreciation for hops. In fact, he includes 7 different varieties of American hops, totaling over 6 pounds. Good grief. 6 pounds of hops per barrel. That's actually not that bad.
All right, now that our yeast is hydrated, we're just going to kind of mix it together. You want to be very gentle. And remember, they are a living creature. They're a fungus. It smells like bread. You know, it's a good thing.
Well, it's because they put yeast in bread.
That's right.
You can, with the yeast cake, I've never done it, but I've read about it. You can make some really good beer bread
Really?
if you use the yeast cake from it.
Basically, we mix it together, make sure we get it all. So you can see it comes out as a cake. It's kind of gross.
After it gets done fermenting, it'll be a pile about an inch and a half or so of that at the bottom of your fermenter where all the yeast settle out. It gets pretty nasty.
Called the cake. Most of it's dead.
Dead or dormant.
Some brewers take that off and reuse it. You can actually start new colonies of yeast that way.
Sometimes you can pitch a new batch of beer on top of it, like if you're doing a strong beer.
All right.
Ready?
That guy's ready. I got this one. This is our yeast we started earlier. It's our starter.
Yep.
Wait a minute, I want to kind of give it a good shake.
Shaking it helps to aerate it a little bit.
And also get the cake off the bottom because it will naturally settle. It gets pretty foamy, so. And with any time you're adding yeast, you don't want to just dump it in. You want to be very gentle with it. You want to be as deliberate as possible, just kind of letting it kind of mix in slowly. As you can see, it looks a lot like that right there, except for chunkier. There we are.
And pop the lid down, and you're good for another couple weeks. Also, for a yeast starter, when I make a yeast starter, I use 2 pints of water for 1 cup of dried malt extract. You just boil it for about 20 minutes in the water, and you cool it, dump it in, and then you add your yeast. And that's what you need to do. All right, I hope you all enjoyed the show. Let me know if you have any questions. My name is Ryan Knowles. This is Roaming Rhino's Home Brewery. You can email me at rknowles, knowles66@hotmail.com.
And also be sure to check out our Mid-Missouri Home Brewers. It's on Facebook. We're trying to get people started on there. People have questions. People have suggestions for the site. Give us a holler. Eventually we will launch a real site that's Mid-Mo Home Brewers, and we're going to start forums on there as well.
Yep. All right, thank you.
Thank you.